Welcome to the latest episode of the Comic Binge. You have another co-host today. Well, not another co-host, but it's me, the host, the main host today, Paul Herman. Hello. And as you can tell, my voice is hacked. And you can thank my daughter for that because she keeps bringing in lots and lots of nasty things for me to get sick by, me and mommy to get sick by, but it's no big deal because today I'm really excited episode. We are going to talk about the essential Batman comic books to read after you've read the essentials. If that makes any sense? We'll break it down. But I couldn't do it without having someone here to do it with me. If I had Chris Cloud here, we'd be here for 18 hours. The Reverend himself. But today I got someone I think who's equally as amazing as the Reverend Chris Cloud, and that is the Batman Book Club himself, Mister Ryan Lauer. Ryan, how are we doing today, man?
Great. Now, Paul, this is your show, so I'll never tell you what to say or what not to say.
Okay.
But I will say, don't you ever assume that I am on the same level as Chris Cloud.
I
am nowhere near that.
I want you to know I would not say that if I didn't mean it. You know this about me. I don't mince words. And that gets me in trouble a lot of times. But anyway, today I'm really excited. You're welcome. Thank you for joining me, as I always tell you, and I'm very, very thankful. Today, I like doing this kinds of shows because I want to talk about, people always know where to go, right? Like they always know let's go to Batman Year One, right? Like that's everyone's like one of the main go-tos, and it's a good go-to. Batman Year One is a great go-to for people to get excited about Batman, and then they go, "Oh, you need to go to Dark Knight Returns," and then they say, "What do you go after that?" Well, that other book called Long Halloween that no one really cares about.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, right.
That's where everybody's going.
Okay. And then, but then you whatever, right? And so those are the essential books for everyone to go to for Batman. But no one really knows about where do you go afterwards, because people, I think, a lot of times will go into comic books and things like that. Like they'll get excited about the year ones and go, "I love that. Where do I go next?" And they go, "Dark Knight Returns." Like, "Oh, cool." And then after they get to these three, and legitimately, these are three amazing stories. And Long Halloween's a part of that. I mean, being serious. But the problem is people kind of fall off a little bit because they go, "Okay, where do we go?" And everyone gets kind of dicey. So I thought it'd be rad to bring in a legit Batman comic book connoisseur like yourself and myself. I'm not a Batman connoisseur as far, I put up just for you. And the thing is, I want to talk about how, get people more into Batman, because right now the Batman movie is amazing. We all love it. It's doing gangbusters. People are excited about Batman again. And I'm not saying they weren't with the, Justice League movies and things like that, but right now this is, up a level now, back to the Nolan days, you could say. And there's a lot of new fans who haven't read comic books that much. Or if they have, they've only read these essential ones. So I wanted to bring someone like you on who is just analyzing all these different books and pick your brain. I picked a few myself. You got a few yourself. Yes. And so we'll kind of go over four, I think, what I would say, go-to stories, comic books for Batman after you've read the essentials. So after you've already read, and again, these are not on the table. Okay. So what's not on this list is going to be this, because you got to read this. It's whatever. Okay. This is standard. This is another standard. Okay. And then this is another standard. Now, with the Long Halloween, though, and also the Ghost of the Dark Knight Returns, these don't count either. You should always be reading this one, okay? You got to read this. Yeah. Got to read that. Like, it's, that's just what it is. So get those out of the way. You read those. Everyone gets excited about Batman. They kind of fall off. Now, we're going to go right to it. What is your first recommendation, my friend, for people to read after the essentials have been read? Where do people go?
Oh, goodness. Instantly when you asked me this question, Paul, it's one of those, it doesn't, you feel only us nerds understand of the pressure of like, wait, I need to break it down. But there's this, all these. But no, I got to keep it.
It's the mainstream.
We can't go 24 hours.
Yeah, no, you mainstream. Like, what's going to grab a non-comic book fan? You gave me two great examples.
Said that.
Yeah.
Number one, Batman Prey.
Okay. Hold on. I'll bring it up here. I should have been better about that. I wasn't. I apologize.
That's okay. So Batman Prey. Oh, there it is. Batman Prey, which was Legends of the Dark Knight issues number 11 through 15.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, written by Doug Mensch and illustrated by Paul Gulacy. It takes place it's like it's almost trying to play like a sequel to Batman Year One. So
Right. Right.
This is early days Batman. It was This comic was written in 1990. Of course, there's a Batman Year Two that is a direct quote unquote sequel of Year One. But Prey, following the line of Legends of the Dark Knight, which is an amazing line of Batman stories.
Venom was right after this, by the way.
I'm sorry.
Venom was right after this. The Venom
Yeah.
storyline. That's crazy to
Yeah.
me. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's so many good arcs and stories that are in the original Legends of the Dark Knight line, and Prey is one of them. But yeah, it's early Batman. You like this kick of not an origin story of Batman, like
Mhm.
in the Batman, but it's still in his early years,
Mhm.
like the Batman. I mean, Batman Prey is kind of your answer. It's great. It follows up with some Catwoman. It's got Hugo Strange. It's got Batman and his relationship getting tested with Jim Gordon. It's got some this guy. I don't want to ruin it in case somebody
Don't
hasn't read it, but this guy
don't
that
ruin
you
it.
see in the bottom left, he plays into the factor. There's a lot of. I mean, it's 5 issues and it has so much going on, and it's not using a bunch of the big. Rogues gallery fully decked
Mhm.
out like we see in the
Yeah.
Long Halloween and stuff too. I feel like Batman Prey is very, very grounded. It was rumored also, and granted this is just fan rumors, that maybe this would have been the direction that the follow up to The Dark Knight was going to go, because there is almost a little bit of a level of chasing Batman.
We'll circle back to that, sir. But go
So
ahead.
I mean, Batman Prey, it is a 5-issue story that like if you've never read it, even if you've read it before, it's hard to not just read the whole thing in one sitting. It's a great story.
All right. So for full disclosure for everybody, when he gave this to me, I wasn't planning on reading this right away anyway, and just because of time. But then I just got off reading 12 whatever 14 issues of Doug Mensch's initial run on the Dark Knight, or excuse me, Batman and Detective Comics, and I really liked it. I've been reading a ton of Moon Knight, and Doug Mensch is definitely a underrated writer.
Right.
What's hilarious is what got me to read this story was this guy right here, Paul Galassi. I can't pronounce anyone's name right. I saw that name and went, oh, wait a minute. And I'm not sure how familiar you are with that artist, Ryan.
I know he also did the art in the follow up of this, Batman
No,
Terror.
seriously. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, Paul Galassi again, Galusi, whatever
Paul
his name
G.
is.
Let's just say Paul G.
Paul G. There we go. My namesake. He and Doug Mensch, excuse me.
Yep.
I don't know why I said Monk. Doug Mensch did that probably the most famous run on Shang-Chi.
Oh.
Shang-Chi. And when I did my required Marvel reading comic book with Alex from Comic Book Historians, he was breaking that mother down like crazy. And we talked about how Paul G totally brought in this cinematic feel to the character and made him he drew him more like Bruce Lee. And his storytelling and layouts were incredible. And I loved it. And then I noticed that when Mensch was on Batman, that Paul kept coming on every once in a while. I didn't know he did this series. So when I saw that he did the series with Doug Mensch, I went, I'm in. I read it all last night. And I got to tell you, you were 100% right. This was a fantastic Batman story. It's weird because there's a lot of year 2 stories out there. I mean, you picked 2 of them today, basically. I mean, and again, not a bad thing, but it's funny how there's so many year 2 stories. You have the Joker story, which the Man Who Laughs, whatever it is. Yeah, which is a great story, a great comic.
Oh yeah.
You have the one we're going to talk about in a second, and then you have the actual year 2 with Todd McFarlane, which in the Reaper or whatever, which is whatever, right? So anyway, I read the story, and I got to tell you, people, go read it. It's Legends of the Dark Knight. Let's start here. I think I have the issue number right here. It's
11 to 15.
Yeah, 11-15. It is worth reading. Go on DC. It's the trade is like $80. It's ridiculous, and they need to reprint that bad boy today because I gotta tell you, Paul G's artwork was incredible. And one of the things you said too, I want to pick your brain on. And again, someone who reads comics as much as I do,
Mhm.
and I know you read a lot, is one thing that's very popular these days is that, and again, it's not a bad thing, but people like to put big panels and like there's always like 3 panels, 2 panels, and again, there's room for that. You need that in comic books for cinematic storytelling.
Sure.
Paul G put so many panels on these pages, and they were never once felt like they were just wasting space. He put on a clinic of what great comic book storytelling is, and
Yeah.
I loved every goddamn minute of it, man. I loved. I gotta tell you, man. When I read Prey, I did not expect to love it as much as I did. I
Was
freaking
this
loved
the first time you read it?
it. Mhm. I read
Okay.
it all last night, and you're right when you said,
That's awesome.
yeah. It honestly blew me away how much I loved it. And another thing I
And
wanted
Paul
to,
Herman never lies. He tells the damn
I
truth.
always
So
tell the
this
damn
is
truth.
pure, genuine
Well,
feelings right here.
you only get pure genuine feelings from me.
Pure Paul.
But one thing too, do you know who Terry Austin is? The inker?
The name. Okay. This sounds like such a
I'm not
scapegoat
I'm not
way.
trying to be I'm not trying to be
Yes,
like,
but no.
okay, no, and I'm not again, I'm not trying to be like, but
School me.
no. When I wrote that tweet today, I said, dude, are you kidding me? This credit box at the bottom, holy crap, wasn't just mentioned Paul G. Terry Austin's a legend. Terry Austin's an inking legend. You know all those Chris Claremont, John Byrne comics? All Terry Austin. Terry Austin is like known to like pretty much be like the one of the heartbeats, the baseline of the Claremont John Byrne run, because his inking was so specific to John Byrne, and he was such a great inker for John. It was he's regarded as a legend in the industry. And he inked this thing, and let me tell you, it felt different even for me. And in Paul G's work, if you look at Shang-Chi and you look at this, it's very different in a good way. And it's so much more real, if that makes any sense. It's weird. Like with
Yes.
go ahead. I know I'm talking
So
way
I
too long.
think there's something with I think something with the look of those early Legends of the Dark Knight stories with the art and stuff that it seems very uh, very clear, maybe is the term I want to say. Like the art is very clear. It's not like extremely lifelike detailed, but it's very like animated
Mm-hmm.
detail.
Yeah.
Very clear in the actions that's going on. And then like you even said too, with the amount of panels that are used here, I think that helps keep this story
Mm-hmm.
very like close and personal. You know, it
Yeah.
like you're there with it. It's not this really zoomed out. I don't know how to. You just it feels almost like a little intimate. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
You
I thought that was
feel
a strength of these early stories too. And I think Prey just really just captures that for this Batman story.
you brought up a great point about what he does a lot is a lot of zooming in on faces.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. It really adds emotion to this whole story. And again, we avoid spoilers on this. We want people to read it and have fun with it because it's worth reading. This is definitely Ryan. I'm so glad you introduced me to the story because I freaking love the story. I'm not lying.
I did last year, episode 50 of my show, did a top 10 Batman stories. And this, I was so excited because I'm like, sweet, I get to just throw Prey out to everybody of please read this story if you haven't.
No, this is an unsung. I mean, I'm obviously this is a people read this because it's $80 on eBay and they printed it
Yeah.
off like this. But no, this is definitely something I think this is a must read. I think for Essential Batman, after you read the Essentials, is a great introduction to Hugo Strange. We'll get to Hugo in a minute. You mentioned something here really quick, and I'll use this to piggyback into my next one.
Okay.
Okay, you talked about how people thought this would be where Nolan would go.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, man, when I read this, I only saw a sequel for the Batman in this. Completely. Everything felt like the Batman. Gordon and his relationship being tested seems like a natural next step into the evolution of the Batman. I think someone trying to impersonate the Batman, maybe something like this potentially, something like in Prey. Okay, now I don't know if it's going to impersonate the Batman, but I think having a task force, something like that, something not even a task force. I think something along the lines of someone being that vigilante character that you see right in that corner. And one of the things I haven't really talked about on Twitter, and I'm going to talk about it at some point, but I'm going to break it down here really quick, is one of the unsung secrets of Marvel, of studios. and I've talked about this on my old podcast or my other podcast all the time with Sean, is one of the biggest secrets for Kevin Feige is that he's a genius because he doesn't adapt just one story and go, he takes everything and molds it and makes it a fantastic viewing movie experience. Matt Reeves did the same damn thing with the Batman. He took so many elements that are great and mushed them together. He did what Marvel Studios did. I'm not saying he ripped them off. I'm just saying he did what I think was the right thing to do with comic properties, and you take from little bits from everywhere and you make it one great story. And that's what he did. I think this very well could be where they could take this basis and mold it and add certain things into, I think, my next story, which I think is the essential. This is to me as essential as it gets. I think for anyone after they've read all those 3 other stories, I think Hush. Now, bear with me. Do I think Hush is the ultimate be-all Batman story? No. Do I like it? Yes. Has it been a long time since I've read it? Yes. Do I know if it's any good still? I have no idea. I've heard nothing but horror stories for people read this thing again. But when I watched Batman Begins years and years ago, when I was just getting back into comics, and I remember I went to a store and I saw Jim Lee was drawing Batman with Jeff Loeb, and I knew both those people. And I said, "Oh man, I have to get this." And I bought. I'll show you which. This is how old school I am, bro. I bought these volumes. Volume 1.
Those were mine.
Yep, got them.
Those are the ones I had.
Fantastic. I loved them. These covers are great, by the way. They're great.
Yeah.
So why Hush? Well, I think first of all, like Long Halloween, this is a great introduction to the whole rogues gallery of Batman. And I think that it's a great mainstream way for people to go, for people who don't know comic books very well. It's a really good, fun read. A lot going on, and it just gets you caught up with everything that's going on in Batman's life. Yeah. Tim Drake, the Huntress, Nightwing, Catwoman, their relationship, a new villain, Harvey, everything is in the story, and it's paced out pretty well, I think, to be honest. Is it the best story ever? No. Do I think it kind of loses it at the end? Yes. But everything up until then, I really like it. So I think this is essential reading for anyone who doesn't know Batman that well from the comic books, because you get instantly a history lesson in this 12 issues, and it's a good story. I think it's a solid, good story. Is it the best Batman story? No, but it's really good, or it's solid to good, I think. Where I bring this up with the Batman, there's a lot of people saying, the Hush reference in the movie, Hush is coming. I think Prey and Hush could be molded together. Like I've been talking about the Batman and the MCU films. If you molded Hush and you replaced the vigilante character in that, not verbatim, but introduce that idea of Hugo Strange maybe helping Hush in some ways, maybe helping facilitate this character, maybe not for the government or for the police force, but for himself, maybe enhancing from what your story might be adding into later on, your pick. I think there is something there. Potentially, but not one for one. But I think there is something here with this story. I don't really know what you think about Hush. I was curious what your take on this, and do you agree with my take that this is a good a good reading material for mainstream people who don't know the character that well?
Let's get the bad out of the way first. So I've listened to you in your criticism of the Long Halloween.
Yes,
and the art is this. You take away Tim Sale's art in the Long Halloween, and it just drops the story.
Yes,
I think that about Hush.
I 100% agree. 100% agree.
This is just Jim Lee just going nuts.
I agree.
And this is such a frame any panel in this entire book, and it can go on a wall.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong.
The whole book, Jim Lee, all-star.
He's an icon. He's an icon.
My gosh.
He's an icon.
It's incredible. He is incredible from the first to the last page of the story. The story itself, while I think it's entertaining for sure, I think it is a little bit clunky.
It is clunky at the end. I agree.
That's the negative that now we're done with that. Otherwise, which I didn't even mention with Batman Prey, but I mean, definitely with Hush, as you just said too. Anybody who has a general idea of Batman, you can hop into Batman Prey, you can hop into Batman Hush. You
Absolutely.
don't have to do all this research that's going to be intimidating. It's like, hey, you've read 2 Batman books in your life, you can read Hush.
Yeah.
Maybe if you've never read any Batman comics in your life, you can read Hush and you're going to get pretty most of it. Some of these side characters, like if Huntress
Yeah.
pops in, you might be like, wait, who's that? But for the most part, 85% of the book you're going to totally follow, no questions asked. So I think that Hush is definitely a good essential pick because for everything you just said. And then, I mean, the art is great in the story. And I'm not going to detract and act like Jeff Loeb isn't good because he's obviously very good.
He's a great writer. He's a great writer.
The
Agreed.
story can be very like clunky, but still like the basics of it are still very good. And then Jim Lee's art just takes it to the next level. So Hush is a very good. It's like the definition of, you know, the summer blockbuster in comic book form.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I would say the Batman is like Long Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're as far as like the tone and the sense of like like again like the type of film or type of story, a little more serious. This Hush is essentially Michael Bay. And that's not bad.
Yeah.
I'm not even trying to talk mess. Like I think Hush is a really fun story for the most part. It does get a little weird at the end. It gets a little bit clunky at the end, but everything else, again, if you don't know anything about Batman comic books, this is the definition of a jumping on point, like 1000%. And this will catch you up, and this is a great education. Honestly, this comic book, I don't care if if people out there are probably groaning out there if you ever watch this. There's big YouTube comic book people who did a review of this, and they tore it to shreds. And I was like, you know what? I'll tell you this though. This beats reading Wikipedia or some DC database and learning about the characters that way than anything. Like Hush will beat that because that's what it is. It's an educational Batman comic, in my opinion. Yeah. And I think Hush is a good character. Now, this is sacrilegious. I have not read Heart of Hush. I heard that's amazing. I know.
Heart of Hush.
I heard it's great.
Better than Hush.
It's all over across the board. So I have it. I will read it soon because I'm in a Batman kick, obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously we're watching a Gotham Knight. And by the way, I probably should say, like, subscribe. I always forget that because I suck. Anyway, I do like Hush. I love Hush. I have the absolute of Hush. I'm gonna read it.
So do I. Oh, it looks great.
I'm sure it does. And again, people, we're negative on it in a sense to where it's just not the best, but it's the best for people who don't know comics that well. And I don't mean that as a slight. I think it's a good thing. We need more books like Hush, in my opinion, in that way.
It is a B+ in the best regard.
That's a great, yeah. Completely. I'd say B minus B between B minus and B is where I would somewhere put it in. Yeah. Because the ending really doesn't fit, but I think but it doesn't matter. If for me, it really did help me get caught up with everything in DC at that point, or at least with Batman and everything. And by the way, Huntress, I miss her. I miss Huntress. All right. Anyway, all right. Your next pick, sir. Tell me, what are we doing?
It's wild that I came to this one, but I mean, it kind of makes sense too. I think because as you were saying when you said the Batman, it just made me think earlier Batman stories, like taking place earlier in his career. And I came up with Matt Wagner's 12-issue Dark Moon Rising series, which, as you can see on the top, says Dark Moon Rising, while issues 1 through 6 are Batman and the Monster Men. And then there's another 1 through 6 of Batman and the Mad Monk.
Yep.
Both of them are retellings of some of Batman's earliest stories in his publishing history. Look at that. I mean, just look at that image right there.
Wagner, dude.
My God. Matt Wagner's covers for this are in like a painted form like that. And they are incredible. And then as for the story itself, I mean, I'd say it's like a year 2, right?
That's what Clow would say. The Reverend.
Okay. It's
like Reverend definitely echoes 2, that.
And I mean, it deals Matt Wagner wrote and illustrated.
He did.
And you have an earlier Batman career. Yet again, Hugo Strange just popping up in this thing. And then the second story of the Mad Monk, there is no big flashy rogues gallery villain. Not even like a Hugo Strange in this, but we got Sal Maroni, who plays a huge part in this entire story. So they have the mob angle in there. You have Julie Madison, who one of Bruce Wayne's first loves in his history. The fact of how Wagner just totally refreshes and remixes these earlier stories to a little more contemporary, a little scarier.
Ridiculous.
I mean, God, and then the look and the atmosphere of the whole book too.
Yeah.
A Batman who still has not perfected, his ways. He's still learning. For people who don't like body armor bat suit, look at right there. This is your tight fitting material bat suits, like. And that, I think that's my favorite of any art
gorgeous.
that he did. I love that look, like that cover. I keep screwing this up. There we go. I love that. But yeah, the Dark Moon Rising stories are fantastic.
So I don't mean to interrupt.
Okay, I'm done. Sorry.
No. Are you? I don't want to interrupt if you have more to say about this.
No, I think that's what I got. Okay. Go ahead, Paul.
Well, the reason I thought it was interesting. Years ago, I'm not sure if you knew who I was with the Modern Myth Media podcast.
I heard you.
Okay, I honestly I didn't know if you remember that at all. Back in the day, we reviewed these books for the Modern Myth Media when we were doing more comic stuff, which I miss, by the way. I miss doing the comic stuff, which that's why I had the comic page.
There you go.
But anyway, and I remember reading this. I didn't like it. Like I did not like anything. I don't know what it was. I don't know. I just could not. There was just something about this series I could not get into. Fast forward.
Did you try both? Monster Man and Mad Monk?
I think I only read Monster Man. And I think I stopped.
Okay.
I think I was supposed to be on the show, and it was a long story. So then fast forward to like 10 years later, and right before the Batman comes out, I'm like, I was kind of like, just, I get in this mode where I don't know what to read. I have like all these graphic novels and comics. And I'm like, what do I read? I think ironically, I read Geiger and this the same weekend, and I'm not joking. As back to back. So just know, I for those who don't know, I will get Lauer to do a Geiger image.
Some Geiger, yeah,
which I'm excited to talk about too. We got that's a fun. It's gonna be a fun episode when we do that soon. Anyway, I digress. I read the Monster Man first, and I was like, I like that a lot. That was really cool. And then I read Mad Monk, and I liked Mad Monk, but I didn't like it as much as Monster Man.
Same.
I think Monster Man is a great introduction for Batman facing supernatural forces, and again, I think it's very funny. You must have a Hugo Strange thing. It seems like with Prey.
See, but he's not like one of my favorite villains.
It's so funny.
I think it's just both of these, Dark Moon Rising and Prey, just utilized him so well in a way that is.
That's true.
He's threatening and believable to be a foe of Batman's. And I think that they just used it really well. And I think that's something that Matt Reeves could absolutely take for his Batman universe. Is this doctor that is obsessed with him. And
I agree.
Because Reeves spent so much like psychologically on his story, and he's very much like psychological and stuff. And it's like, well, then bring in the doctor, the psychologist, bring in Hugo Strange, who knows who Bruce Wayne is, or who Batman is and stuff, and just utilizing that. So I too found that interesting when I told you what I was picking. I was like, I got Hugo Strange for both, but he's not a top 5 villain.
I've never been
in the world. So
it's funny. I did not like Hugo Strange very much in the Monster Man. It felt very like just mad science-y. But you know what made me put me over the top? Was your story, Prey. Yeah. Prey made me go, okay, I get it. I liked him in the cartoon, but I liked him a lot in this. Or not in this, but in Prey. No, in Prey.
No, have you read Strange Apparitions though?
No, I have not. But I might have to.
Marshall Rogers?
Nope.
Yeah. Look those up. And
all right. I will.
DC Universe Infinite, because Hugo Strange is in
do
that
for me.
too.
Come on, you gotta do it for me.
DC Universe
Infinite.
Dude, every time you say that, I always crack
every time. Justin Kowalski, we did that together.
I miss you, Justin. The other night, I think you said that. I was like, I go to sleep listening to podcasts. I've gone to sleep listening to you many nights now, and I'm not even joking.
I put you to sleep.
No, no,
Oh man, that's how entertaining I am. What a good sell.
It's because
Any of you want to go to bed?
it's
just listen to me.
It's because it helps me sleep. I start thinking, and my mind starts drifting, and I go right to sleep.
It's just like people used to listen to like self-help tapes. And
Yeah.
apparently that would cure them of smoking. Well, you listen to my voice, and so you're just in your sleep. You're like, read more Batman comics.
I do.
Infinite.
Yeah. No, but I was like half awake, and you went infinite, and I just laughed.
Awesome.
I went,
You're welcome.
But I liked it a lot more. I don't know if you saw my tweets about it a couple months ago, or whatever it was, but
I read attention to you, but I don't remember this.
You don't like me. It's fine. I understand.
Yeah.
No, yeah. As you're on the show right now, and you're like your busy schedule, I'm like, come on. No, it was. I liked him a lot more. Mad Monk was a little tougher to get through. That was a little. It wasn't bad. It just was. It felt like it dragged a little bit, in my opinion.
I can get that. I think I think that's what surprises me too a little bit is obviously I like the whole thing. If I didn't, I'd just say Batman.
Right. Yeah. No, it's not bad. Yeah, it's not bad.
Monster Men is better, and that's funny to me because it's like, well, you're bringing in Hugo Strange. He jacks up these men and makes them monsters. Okay, that sounds a little silly. Whereas the Mad Monk is a guy who is just like culty and like drinking blood and shit like that. And it's like, okay, so that's real. The guy's just kind of a kook. But no, actually, the Monster Men plays out stronger story wise. But
it's interesting because I don't know how I'd feel about Hugo Strange doing like getting super like superhero-y, if that makes any sense. Like I think I was watching a review of the Batman this today on the YouTube show Valiant Comics, which I don't really watch that stuff very much because all it is recapping comic book stuff, and that's not really my bag for that kind of thing. But I do like they seem like good dudes, and the one thing I will say that he brought up a great point. I'm going to steal it from them. Is someone said this feels like a great like bridge between, or a great kind of in between of Nolan and Snyder. And I was like, yeah. And so I think we can get those fantastical elements. Like, I mean, we obviously have, Venom, I guess, was in the Batman. I thought was weird myself, but if that is Venom, and I think like I've heard
as of now, if you want it to be, it can be.
Well, that's what I heard. Matt Reeves confirmed it though.
I didn't come across that.
And I'm not saying he did. I'm just saying that's why maybe you know what. But I think if you combine different elements of different stories, like maybe if Hugo Strange, it helps create Venom. That makes sense. If he gives it to somebody else to, power somebody else and have Hugo Strange be that behind the scenes character, like the Falcones or whatever in, the Batman. Or it's Maroni, right? Oh, Falcone. Yeah, Falcone was Falcone. He could be like a Falcone character. He's behind the scenes, or I don't want to do like another Riddler. I hope he actually has a character he is up against, and that's what I think he'll have to be. I feel like in the Batman, that's why I think Hush is a good character for that, because it's mano a mano, and you could potentially combine some different elements of like. Your past, you can't run. You can avenge your past. You can, whatever, but you can't run from your past. And maybe Hush could represent that, and then you can use different elements. So I don't know, but I definitely feel that Monster Men and Hugo Strange is definitely an element to bring into that world of the Batman. And I think that's not a bad idea. And I think for people who don't know Batman Batman comics, this is a great thing because the art is fantastic, the story's fun, and I think it's just a different feel for Batman. And I think it's a good thing for people that don't know Batman comics very well. It's a good. It also helps develop Jim and Batman's relationship. To be honest, I think it was a good kind of not segue, but a good developing of their relationship anyway.
Yeah, good stepping stone.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it ends. The whole story ends on it's like an exciting yet also kind of tragic note.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Yeah, that's a good point. Which, by the way, in Prey, we got the reveal of something big in Batman mythos, which I almost forgot to talk about, and Paul G draws it completely like that first movie. I'll just say it. I'll just leave it like that.
Okay.
Go back and read that. Go look at that panel or the reveal of it.
It's cool. A second, and I'm like, hold on, Paul, but I got you.
I got you. No, it looks exactly like it. All right, I got you. I can't really talk much because my voice is effed. All right, last one. I didn't mean to do mine last. By the way, I'm sorry.
You should. It's your show.
No,
it's the main event.
No, I'm not the main event. No one cares about me, which is fine. Um, One thing that I will say that I was pleasantly surprised at, and I don't think, and again, I avoided stuff online too, Mr. Lauer, but,
Yes.
and you can correct me if I'm wrong in a second here, but I had no idea this would be ending up be such an inspiration on the movie, way more than I was anticipating. And I'm really glad I read it right before the movie because I was like, oh, I should read this because everyone keeps telling me to read it, like you and everybody else, and freaking Haas, you know. And I'm like, all right, I'll read this one day. And I just downloaded on Hoopla.
Hoopla.
I read 6 pages and I stopped and went, nope, I'm going to order it online right now. I was liking it too much and I want to read it physically. And that was the Batman Earth 1. When this came out, I didn't give a crap about it. It felt very much like, no, hold on. It's because it felt just like Scott Snyder was trying to read. And I remember, and I didn't read Zero Year at the time, but I felt that Zero Year. I heard of Zero Year, and then this was coming out like kind of not close, but in around the same time frame. I just was like, man, everyone tries to keep doing Year One. Get some new shtick, guys. Like come on, like there's only one Year One. We can only do this once, and this is amazing. This is maybe the second best Batman story of all time, behind the Dark Knight Returns. You heard what I said. Anyway,
Okay.
but I digress. But the thing is, with Earth One, it just felt more of like retreading, like let's do Batman's origin, like Batman. I don't need that. And then when I finally read it, I loved it. And then I blazed through Volume 1 and Volume 2. And I ordered Volume 3 immediately after I read Volume 2. And I gotta tell you, man, I love this series. This is a fantastic series. It takes so much from these comic books for the most part, at least mostly the Volume 1, I'd say. But whatever, it's the whole thing. I was really impressed. And I gotta tell you, I think this is definitely worth reading for any newcomer of Batman, and it's a great, I think, introduction to just a reintroduction of these reinterpretation of characters. Killer Croc, I felt like it was really cool seeing a Killer Croc in this. Catwoman was a little, probably my biggest, gripe was probably Catwoman.
Okay.
To be honest, mostly the costume, but that's a whole different thing.
Sure. Okay, I get you.
But Riddler, I mean, they take a lot from this story, man.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Earth One. I think Earth 1, Volume 2, Volume 3 are all essential picks in my opinion for newcomers of Batman. After you read the big 3, go read Earth 1, Volume 1 and 2 and 3. You will not be disappointed. Go ahead, Ryan.
I'm with you. Yeah, this is a grounded and gritty story. Gary Frank, that guy is. I mean, hold on. I should actually say the dynamic duo of Gary Frank and colorist Brad Anderson.
Yeah.
They are as close to the team of Jim Lee and Scott Williams that I think you could get.
Did Brad Anderson do 3 Jokers?
Yes, he did.
That's what I thought.
Favich.
The art,
yeah.
And let me tell you, the coloring on that book and this book, these books are phenomenal. They're great. They look great.
They're great. So this is another. I mean, at worst, it's a lot of really pretty pages to look at. But I mean, it's Jeff Johns. He's
Jeff
a
Johns
master
is the clinic,
storyteller.
man. Yeah, he's masterful.
He knows what he's doing. He's great. And yeah, I think his story, it's different. And I could see how many would share your opinion too on the first time that you tried it, or you avoided it, or you didn't read it because of like, I don't need to see this again or whatever. But I mean, everything ends up getting updated in a new generation.
Yep.
It can just be
Great
refreshed a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say that this is better than any other origin story of Batman or anything at all. It's just, it's done a little different, but anybody who's read this before or will read it for the first time after watching the Batman, you can see definitely in the first 2 volumes, because Volume 3 didn't come out until last year, in which Reeves and crew, they were wrapping up production. But the first 2 volumes, you'll see a lot of huge influence,
big points too.
Some really big points.
Points.
I think it's definitely a good. I mean, nothing else. You can compare and contrast with year one if you want to. Like, hey, there's an origin story. Let's read this origin story. What do you think? Because even though certain events I think are different, the core aspects stick.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this
Yeah.
isn't like it's spoiling on the character or the origins of Bruce Wayne. You know, it's sticking to the root of that character.
Yeah.
It's just trying to get him to what you know as Batman and stuff. And I'm just rambling now, but I
Oh
totally
no,
agree.
you
This
sound
one's
great, man. You
good.
sound great.
These are good. These are good stories.
You know, I'm not gonna, this isn't really a spoiler, but I gotta tell you, when I read this, and I tweeted it out, and I had no idea. And I'll go ask you this question again before we're out. But I read this and I went, "This is my favorite interpretation of Alfred," and I had no idea that that would be a gigantic influence on the Batman. Was that
Mhm.
public knowledge that that was going to be an influence on the character?
I
I don't think it
I
was.
think once it was cast as Andy Serkis, I just feel like everyone just assumed this was the route taking because Serkis is not Michael Caine's age.
Yeah,
Andy Serkis is still young enough that he can do physical. It just felt like, oh, that's a casting. That's an Earth One casting
really
for Alfred.
interesting.
Yeah, and it does seem like that's a little bit of the route they're kind of trying to take with the character.
Yeah,
I mean, he's dead right now in the comics, but yeah, exactly. But it's kind of they've gotten further and further away from the servant butler.
which is good.
I
You know,
still I still like status quo Batman at Wayne Manor in a bat cave with Alfred and a nice little mustache and Sir with a lot of witty retorts.
but
Bruce.
you know what though? I think that with what they do in this book and what they do, I think in year one, or excuse me, in the Batman, the Batman's, I think maybe it could be. We'll see what happens in the next film. It could be the best interpretation of Alfred ever, in my opinion.
It could, and I mean that's something that I do really like with this interpretation. Alfred came on pretty hard in this.
Yeah, I
in
agree.
Volume one for
I
sure.
agree. Yep.
But what he ended up doing in like volumes 2 and 3, and then what Matt Reeves did with Alfred is Alfred's like a teammate. You know,
Yeah.
Alfred helps him solve this crime. They're on the same side, the same level,
Yeah.
working together on this. I really, really like that. And it's not that old Alfred never did.
No, yeah.
It's just I think it's well, I don't know what the term I'm trying to think. It's definitely emphasized here.
He's a surrogate father without being, but he's also like that like you said, a teammate, like almost like a peer. He's a surrogate father and a peer at the same time, whereas the older Alfred is more the surrogate father. Which again, I love that too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that's bad, but the one thing I would say, you brought up a great point about this, which by the way, also Sam Elliott as basically as the basis of Alfred in these stories is hilarious. I mean, I read it. I opened up and went, Sam Elliott. That's so, I'm like, wow.
Oh, that's Sam Elliott.
Yeah. So, hey, Bruce. I'm like, I can't buy this guy having an English accent. When I read it, I only heard American. I only heard American, in my opinion. But the one thing with Andy Serkis is the difference. I mean, you brought up a great point in this story. He's a little more harder edge in Earth One. And if you guys, again, these aren't really spoilers because I really do feel like you'll understand what we're talking about, and that's what we're not talking about right now in the details. The devil's in the details for Alfred. So that's why you want to read this. It's really interesting. But the one thing I would say about Andy Serkis's difference between the Sam Elliott version of this one is there's a softness to Andy Serkis's performance and what he does with Alfred. You could tell that he commands. He's a leader. He is someone who is organized and is a leader and is all that stuff, right? But there's a softness that he plays Alfred with. Just when he's on screen, the limited amount of time, it leaves an impact on you. Like when he comes in, he's like, "Oh dear God," and but he's also like, "Oh, she's pretty." Like he's trying. There's just the connection they have. Serkis is a master. He's such a great actor, and I love him. And I cannot wait to see more of him in the next movie. I know he's a busy guy, but man, I he's a solid director. Let There Be Carnage is no BS, a lot of fun. He directed the hell out of that movie. And I gotta tell you, I really hope he does more in that movie, and I hope maybe they give him a spinoff or something because he deserves it. He's fantastic.
He definitely will. I know we're not talking about the Batman, but he
No,
definitely
we
will
can't.
because
Yeah.
he definitely serves, or he wasn't in it like a ton, but that's because the story they were telling.
Right.
He was
right.
repairing that relationship with Bruce to where
Right.
now I think that's repaired. Spoiler alert. The sequel will have a lot more out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that you can't go wrong with Earth One. I don't think any of these stories you can go wrong with after you
No.
read the essentials. So again, I'm just gonna before we wrap up, and again, thank you for your time, Ryan. This has been so much fun. I mean, we
It
go
has.
as we know, I could go on for hours and hours and hours,
Yeah.
but I told you I want to cut it short. But also, I think people who are new to comics might see this 45 50-minute time frame and go, oh, I can actually watch this and not whatever, right? So again, people, if you've read Year One, and if you read The Dark Knight Returns, and you've maybe got bored and you eventually read The Long Halloween, and then you already read the sequel to The Long Halloween that no one cares about. I'm just kidding. But I said I love The Long Halloween. I do like it a lot.
Herman.
I know, but again, we're gonna recap it, and then we're gonna be done. All right, then we'll go. You want to go right to Prey? I read Prey. It's phenomenal. I love it. I want a freaking reprint of this right now, DC. It's phenomenal. Thank you for introducing me to this story.
You're welcome.
Next would be we'll keep it in Year Two. We'll do so. It's Dark Moon Rising. So it's if you want in a DC Infinite. Yeah, Infinite, whatever. Go Batman and the Monster Man and Mad Monk. It's what it's under. So definitely check those out. This is Year Two. Batman taking on supernatural threats for the first time. Really, really fascinating. Super fun. Artwork alone is worth checking out. It's phenomenal. And then you want to go to I think again, Batman Hush is a great introduction to the characters and the world of the Batman. It's a great jumping on point. You've got literally everybody. I think it does a pretty good job of giving everyone a little bit of something to do. And it's a great educational piece, in my opinion, for Batman people. If you haven't read Batman comics in a long time, or you haven't read barely any actual continuity into the weeds Batman comics, this is the jumping on point to go and learn a lot without having to go on Wikipedia and read all this crap, because that's boring. I'm sorry, the medium's too good. Jim Lee's artwork's too good not to read a story. So check it out. And again, look, we just talked about it. Earth One, volumes 1 through 3. Jeff Johns, Gary Frank, Brian Anderson, phenomenal work. You gotta check it out. It's great. It's fantastic. I know Jeff Johns a lightning rod for some people, but you know what? I think he's a phenomenal writer. He's one of my favorite writers now. He puts on clinics every time he writes a comic book. I love it. So check it out. And Ryan, thanks for coming on, man.
Absolutely, Paul. Thanks for asking me.
No. I
love talking Batman.
I know you do. I know. And Ego would be one too. I should have put read Ego on there too. Exactly. I know.
Unreal.
Really quickly, for people, I'm a little mini announcement, and then we'll get out of here, Ryan.
Okay.
So today is kind of like the first. Actually, you should be honored. Really. No, I'm just kidding. But today will be the kind of our first. We're gonna for the time being, we're gonna do every Tuesday for the comic binge. So every Tuesday we're gonna have a new episode. It'll be all over the place for what kind of episode we're gonna have. Next Tuesday we're gonna have a Moon Knight episode. Very exciting.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Yeah, I know exactly right. And then through like this Friday, we're gonna do a Boba Fett episode. So we're gonna try to do at least every Tuesday, so people know when we're gonna jump on, so people can jump on with us, have fun, get on the live stream with us, ask questions like people have. Thank you for everyone who has already. And it's every Tuesday around this time, 7:30, 7:45 PST. And then every once in a while, like we all get Mr. Lauer here. We'll do a quick 45-minute episode about Geiger or something like that, something like that. So
all right.
This is the first of many. So next Tuesday at the same time will be Moon Knight, and it's be Moon Knight prep. Okay. And then this Friday, we're going to be doing Boba Fett, Star Wars required reading. So all the essential reading comic books for Boba Fett, in our opinion, of a great lineup. I think I'm super excited. I love talking comic books, as you can tell. Ryan, where can you find your amazing stuff at?
You can find my podcast, The Batman Book Club, which is a podcast exploring the Dark Knight Library. Yeah, let's see right there at the Batman BC on Twitter and Instagram. You can find the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. It's everywhere. It's on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google Play, Podbean, all the good stuff. That's where it's at. The most recent episode was Robin and Batman, which I've gotten to talk on here with Mr. Paul Herman and Chris Clow. So yeah, I did an episode on that. That's the most recent one, and that's episode number 97. So
it was great too. I haven't listened to all of it.
Thank you.
I listened to half of it, but it's great. Nick was great. Nick, but that's his brother. I always get those.
Nick Zednick.
Yeah.
The Zeddy.
Yeah, the Zeddies.
Yeah, you listen to the first half. Well, the back half, it tanks. So just don't even listen.
I won't even worry about it then.
Yeah.
And Imposter was great with Bill. I love that. That was great. I mean, all your episodes are great, man. And I mean that. People need to know this guy's
been on there.
A couple times, and I keep bugging you to be on more because I'm a jerk. So I'm selfish that way. But I mean that, guys. Batman Book Club is the best podcast I think for comic books out there. You're not going to find a better podcast, and I mean that. It is great. This guy's stock is rising, and it's for good reason because he's a great dude, and he puts out great content. So I'm just happy for you, and I'm happy for you, Ryan. You're awesome. I'll stop talking about you.
Talk about yourself. Okay.
I am right now, and which I suck. So there you go. Thank you for everyone who's subscribed recently and liked videos. I really appreciate you guys all. Honestly, I'm just all about growing the community of comic books, and I want people to read more. And I don't care if you have to like the same things I like. I just want people to read and talk about things they love. That's all I care about. And I just am grateful for everyone who subscribes and watches the videos. Please, again, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Comment below. Tell us how much I suck, or tell us how much Ryan is awesome. I don't care. Just comment, like, all that stuff. It's great. And I'm hoping to have more announcements for comic stuff. Go check out before I get out of here. I always got to try to print this out. Webtoons, Space Demons. Check it out. A lot of fun. Antonio, the artist, is hard at work. My homies are hard at work. He's going to do it. We're going to hopefully get it out next month or so. It's hard, man. Making comics ain't easy, let me tell you. But you know what? I love doing it. It's honestly one of my favorite things to do nowadays. So, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to say this for the Reverend Chris Clow because he's not here. Read more comic books. All right, y'all.